Well, we can't fix what's going on at other campuses, though you've pointed out just one of the many symptoms of the problems that are out there. But if we can create a new institution, and we are just a startup at this point, that can model academic freedom and show that a truly free speech, free thinking campus can attract the best faculty and the best students, then the magic of competition should begin to do its work. The key issue we're motivated by is that at this point, roughly 62% of American undergraduates feel they cannot speak freely on campus. They can't express their opinions for fear of retribution, either from their fellow students or from administrations that are increasingly doctrinaire, and that's just deeply unhealthy. That's not how universities should be. Universities should be the places where people can think aloud, where young people can take risk, test out ideas that may turn out to be wrong, and we just want to build an institution that reverts to that fundamental principle that the pursuit of truth is best served by free speech and free discussion.
Niall, I want to point out another statistic that our next guest found in her reporting on this issue. A lot of this comes to a head around the discussion of speakers being brought to campus. And in 2016, there were only 42 disinvites of speakers, and 11, of course, were for Milo Yiannopoulos. Even if at every school in the U.S. only had one speaker per year, that's less than 0.1% of speakers being uninvited. So that just begs the question of how big of an issue this is, right? To what extent does that less than 0.1% of an occurrence call for a new university?
Well, the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education has noted that there has been a steady increase in the number of these cancellations over the past 5 or 6 years, as well as an increase in the number of disciplinary steps taken against faculty for things that they said. But the point is not really the raw numbers. The point is the effect this has on everybody else. If, for example, someone like Dorian Abbott, a physicist at the University of Chicago, has his lecture at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology cancelled because of something that he said about affirmative action, we create an atmosphere in which nobody feels able to speak out for fear of consequences. Some of the survey data is really startling on this. For example, there's a report out just earlier this year showing what a large proportion of professors don't feel comfortable in expressing their views. And you mentioned already the large number of often younger academics who feel it's legitimate to have colleagues fired if they cross certain ideological lines, whether it's on issues of race or gender or other issues that the so-called woke radicals deem to be sacrosanct. So it's not the numbers that matter, it's the general atmosphere, the chilling atmosphere. And you'll find the evidence for this chilling atmosphere in numerous surveys, particularly by Heterodox Academy, showing, as I mentioned already, that close to 2/3 of students feel that they can't speak their minds. How can that be healthy?
Niall, if some of the issues surround woke radicalism and then drawing in more of a conservative viewpoint as well, how do you ensure that a university like this truly does bring in a wide-ranging, diverse set of viewpoints that are able to live?
Well, that's the key issue, and that's part of the reason that we created a very broad and diverse group of advisors to make sure that we get this right. This is emphatically not a conservative institution, nor is it a liberal institution, although it should be said that politically most universities in the US today are overwhelmingly liberal institutions, whether you look at the politics of the faculty, administrators, or for that matter, undergraduates. But there's no question in our minds that ideological or intellectual diversity is as important as any other kind of diversity, and we need to make sure that we have that. And I think the way to do that is to make it clear that we're not going to have oaths that have to be sworn on the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion before people can even be considered for employment or admission. The ultimately difficult challenge here is that we're in a very polarized America these days, and almost every issue becomes partisan, whether it's vaccines or higher education. I've been amazed at the extraordinarily vituperative reaction we've elicited from some quarters just for saying that we're creating a new college, just for proposing a startup. You'd have thought we were proposing to burn down Harvard, Yale, and Princeton by the reaction that has been so negative, and it's been predominantly on the left.
Well,
but
let's talk about that, Neil, really quickly, right? I just want to get in here because the left has compared it even to, Trump University. Some have called it an anti-woke, anti-cancel culture school. What's your response to that assertion?
Well, this is just mudslinging. It's obviously completely divorced from reality. There's no basis for that in anything that we've said. It's not as if all our advisors or all our founders are conservative. Is Heather Heying conservative? That's news to me, and it's certainly news to her. And she's another founder and somebody with whom I disagree about many, many issues. But on the fundamental issue that free speech is crucial in academic institutions, on that we're all agreed regardless of our politics. And that's the key point.
Neil, I'm curious, between high cost of education in the United States, high student debt, the graduation rates in the U.S., why was this the issue that this group has decided to tackle relative to all the issues that we're seeing in higher education?
It's not the only issue. It's the one we keep getting asked about. But we are also aiming to make sure that tuition is significantly lower at the University of Austin than it is at most of the elite universities these days. The explosive cost of tuition over the last 3 decades is a major problem that tells you something's wrong with the system. What does it tell you? That there can't be enough competition if universities are able to charge such astonishing levels of tuition. So our goal is to compete on cost. We're also going to make sure that there are scholarships and bursaries for students from less advantaged backgrounds. These are just as important to us as the issues of academic freedom. They're absolutely central to our mission to be accessible to all, regardless of their ideological standpoint, regardless of their economic circumstances.
Niall Ferguson, University of Austin co-founder and Bloomberg opinion contributor, thank you so much for your time.